To me, another position of concern, I would say for me, is backup center, right? Because I feel like center is one of those positions you can only really develop if you get the experience. Right now, you're looking at guys that are backing up Ted Karras. You got Matt Lee, obviously, who's a terrific. He was a terrific center at the college football level. I thought he struggled at points in time, being an anchor at times. But I think that from a technicality standpoint, the guy is very technical. His hands are always in the right place. One you feel really good about, you're excited about. I know that was a lot of Bengals people's favorite pick from a value perspective. You still got Trey Hill too, who's Logan's guy. But
Malik distancing himself. From
no,
right away.
That's big Logan guy, But
definitely Logan, never Malik.
Definitely 100%. But what are your thoughts? I know I've been kind of long-winded a little bit on that, but Logan, let's hear from you.
I think it just depends how you want to look at it. I think there's, no doubt that when you look at the starting 5 offensive linemen with Cordell Wilson currently slotted in, it's a well above average group. I think there's, like Evan said, there's still a pretty clear hole at that left guard position. I don't necessarily want to call it a hole because Cordell Wilson can continue to get better. And, he's provided plenty of good games in the past. It's just the inconsistencies, which is typical for a young player and a young player coming from FBS school. Like he's been good, all things considered, but we still need to see him take the jump and get better and keep developing, which last year, was unfortunately not the case. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen this year. Right. But I mean, I think the only worries from the offensive line just start to stack up when you look at the depth perspective of things, which, for some teams is a lot more of an issue. For others, it's not. Sometimes teams' offensive lines will stay healthy all year, and it's not an issue at all whatsoever. Some teams go through 17 different starting offensive lines a year, different combinations, whatever it is, so, it depends how you want to look at it. I think the depth is 100% something to be worried about, especially on the interior side of things. So it depends how you want to look at it. If you want to look at the starters, I'm very confident in the starters to give Joe Burrow the best offensive line he has. But as soon as one thing goes wrong, then it's like, okay, now I'm a little scared because it's either whether it's Trent Brown sliding in and Mims coming in. There's something new we haven't seen before. There's going to be something new or that we haven't seen before if somebody goes down immediately. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a scary thing. And we just talked about the morality of Joe Burrow's football career. You don't really want to have the mortality.
Yeah, we want to make sure there's nothing evil about Joe Burrow playing football. There's something beautiful, something spiritual about Joe Burrow playing football.
It's just that's when the issues start to come up. It's just the depth. And I think that's no secret to anybody. But they've hit some waiver claims. Max Sharping, I believe, was a waiver claim a few years ago. There's going to be plenty offensive linemen cut. That's why waivers happen year in and year out. Right. Maybe we'll find another guy that they just like a little more. Maybe, it'll be a vet that's cut for a young guy, whatever it is. Or maybe it's a young guy they liked in the draft last year, the year before. There's still, plenty of time to bring in bodies that they might prefer or just are more traditional guards or a more traditional tackle. Like, let's say if we cut Trey Hill or something and they go claim another guard, a true guard, then things start to kind of settle down a little bit. There's still a lot of time before, the week one depth chart rolls around. Very confident in the starting unit. After that, I get a little scared.
No, I think you nailed it. Starters, absolutely. You feel like, hey, this is again, going back to how many NFL offensive lines out there can say that they feel good about where they are or above average at 4 out of 5 spots, right? That's maybe 4 or 5 teams, right? And this is not to say Cordell Wilson, like you said, is bad. He is absolutely fine for being an FCS 4th round older player, right? Like that is, I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, this guy who's the 4th rounder is now going to become a 1st round Hall of Famer guy, right? Like we already had that talk from some other people once upon a time, but I don't.
Okay, Shams.
I don't want to bag too hard on Cordell Wilson, right? I want to give him his due, but again, the starters just by themselves, absolutely. I think that's a great unit. Again, it comes back to the depth where Jackson Kirkland, Cody Ford.
How do you feel about that though?
It worries me because you could probably count on one hand. I'm guessing here, entirely speculative, but I bet you could count on one hand the number of times that a team has had an entire 5 starting offensive linemen start the entire season 2 years in a row, right?
Yeah.
And the Bengals did that last year. So the chances that they go
again,
17 games without a single guy getting hurt, I think is really unrealistic, right? Just playing the odds. So like you said, that's the advantage of, hey, if Trent Brown can play right guard, hey, we have all this time, we have all these reps. Let's see if Amarius Mims can play a little bit of left guard. Like you see what you have, and that's not even to displace them or make things harder on them, but it's just to understand a little bit about what your options are and what you can do if and when someone gets hurt eventually. What that answer is going to be. And I think Matt Lee is probably going to have a little bit more. I just have more faith in him and his upside than I do with Trey Hill. But again, I'm not, just like with Cordell Wilson, I'm not going to be like, oh, the 7th rounder is going to come in here, and if God forbid Ted Karras goes down for a game or two, the 7th rounder is going to come in and just kick ass, right? I'm cautiously optimistic. So I agree. Veteran depth, especially at guard, would be awesome. That interior of the offensive line is going to be a need for the backup position, and then for the starting position for all 3 spots in the next 2 years, right? Depending on who they want to bring back. So it's definitely somewhere where they, for the near future and beyond, definitely need to strongly consider the talent on their interior.
The only kind of like, I don't want to say like I'm hopeful about this guy or anything, but I think we've kind of danced around him a little bit. Jackson Kirkland,
people were high on him,
and because people were pretty surprised he went undrafted, and for whatever reason he went undrafted. But I mean, he was a pretty above average college football player too. Like he played left guard and left tackle, got some versatility there. I think maybe that just might be a guy that they're, like you said, just higher on than most,
Could be their new Hakeem Adeniji type guy, where they're just like, hey, we're going to have you around here, Deontay Smith, for a little bit and just move you around and
see where you stick.
Right.
I mean, he gave up 3 sacks his 3 years as a starter in college. Like I
think that's valuable. I don't want to treat him like a known commodity, right? I don't want to be like, well, at least they have Jackson, because I haven't seen him get on the NFL field.
I just think that's how, maybe that's the only person I look at that, like, maybe they see
there's
something
some upside,
there.
Right.
Yeah. More than some of these other guys. We kind of know what they are. We know what they were in college, but Kirkland was a pretty decent prospect, went undrafted for whatever reason. And then we don't really know what he's been on the NFL. So I think that's the only player you can kind of look at that, like, we don't know, he might be better than we think. Maybe the Bengals are high on him the most. That's about the only guy, depth pieces that I think, that's a guy to watch in preseason.